Since Vladimir Putin launched his Ukraine invasion, his secret service, the FSB, has been at the forefront of his plans. Increasingly militarized since the beginning of the war, the organization is key to Putin's intelligence gathering and his ability to conduct shadow warfare. Now some of Russia's key FSB personnel are dead. Ukraine has bombed a Russian FSB base using precision-guided French bombs, and Putin won't believe what's coming next. Ukraine is going to be dropping the hammer more often as the war heads deeper into 2025. On July 24th and 25th, both Military and United 24 Media reported that a Ukrainian tactical aviation unit had conducted a precision bombing strike against a Russian FSB facility located in the Bryansk region. Immediately, we see something important here. Bryansk is a Russian region that's located near the border with Ukraine, meaning Ukraine just took out a facility on Russia's territory using its aerial bombs. Specifically, United 24 says that the strike targeted a Russian border guard post near a small village named Belaya Berezka. It worked like a charm. Ukraine's bombs utterly devastated the FSB facility. And it's not just an FSB building that was destroyed. Military also points out that the FSB officers in that building received warnings to evacuate as the Ukrainian bombs were on the verge of raining down. They ignored those warnings. Now, those FSB operatives are dead. United 24 Media adds that Ukraine managed to pull off the strike using a pair of AASM HAMMER guided bombs. Specifically, the Hammer isn't a bomb in its own right. Instead, it's a French-made, precision-guided bomb kit that Ukraine can use to transform its massive Soviet-era dumb bombs into guided munitions capable of hitting Russian positions with supreme accuracy. The weapons have already contributed massively to several recent Ukrainian military operations, as we'll discuss later in the video. And there's more. Russia hasn't been able to come out and deny that the attack took place for a simple reason. There's footage of Ukraine's strike. Shared by the Sonia Shinnik Telegram channel, the 16-second video shows everything that we need to see to confirm that Ukraine's strike was a success. The footage starts with an aerial view of the FSB building, likely being shot by a Ukrainian reconnaissance drone. That will already be worrying for Putin. Remember that Bryansk is Russian territory. So the presence of Ukrainian drones in the region means that whatever security Putin has in place to protect Bryansk from Ukraine's aerial threat isn't doing its job. Within seconds of the footage starting, we see just how badly Russia's air defenses had clearly failed. The first hammer hits home, striking the corner of the FSB facility and causing a massive plume of smoke and rubble to rise into the air. Within seconds, the next hammer finds its target, landing close to the first bomb in another cloud of fire and smoke. This was a coordinated attack. Most of the FSB facility is untouched, with only one corner being pelted with Ukraine's hammer bombs. Ukraine must have known that corner was where its FSB targets were. Now, those targets are down. The Sonia Shinnik Telegram channel was jubilant in its response to the footage it shared. The Cossacks had a great time in the north. A fat target was destroyed by a strike of 2 AASM hammers, it said. The non-commissioned officers of the occupation troops ignored the safety measures in the first warning, so they had to be reminded again about eviction to hell. Defense Express provides its own follow-up, noting that Russian authorities have yet to officially confirm the strike. That's no surprise. There's no way to spin the very clear footage of 2 AASM hammers hitting their target. Russia can't claim that this was drone debris. It can't say that it shot the 2 bombs out of the sky. These were direct hits, caught on film for the world to see. Satellite imagery and local reports of the strike both confirm that Ukraine's bombs caused heavy damage, Defense Express says, while noting that the attack demonstrates Ukraine's increasingly improved precision strike capabilities. Putin will be furious. Not only has a key FSB facility been taken out, but it looks like whatever air defenses he had stationed near the building were useless. The shared footage offers no evidence that air defenses responded to the hammer bombs, meaning one of two things. Either whatever was there failed to react to the bombs, or more worryingly for Putin, no air defenses were guarding the building, and Ukraine was able to take advantage. Regardless, Russia is now left to deal with the consequences. An FSB building lies in ruins, with Ukraine's bombs also taking some of Russia's most valuable security service operatives with it, and the attack was pulled off using a Western-made bomb kit, showcasing just how little Putin's former red lines mean to Ukraine and the collective West. Let's focus on the AASM hammer for a moment. Made in France, the AASM hammer has emerged as one of the most valuable weapons that Ukraine has in its arsenal. Army recognition says that the hammer portion of the name means highly agile, modular munition extended range, and that tells you much of what you need to know about this French bomb kit. It's a modular kit that can be strapped to almost any dumb bomb, extending the bomb's range while offering it a level of precision that it previously didn't have. In other words, Ukraine no longer needs to send bombers to drop its dumb bombs directly over Russian targets. It can launch AASM hammers from a distance and know that they'll glide to whatever they need to hit. The Hammer entered service in the French Air Force and Naval Aviation in 2007 and can be used with bombs ranging in weight from 275 pounds to 2,204 pounds. There are 3 main versions of the kit, each of which delivers different levels of precision and targeting capabilities to Ukraine's dumb bombs. The SBU-38 is the original incarnation of the Hammer, and it comes loaded with a GPS guidance system and an inertial navigation system. That combination gives the SBU-38 a circular error probable, or CEP, of just 32.8 feet. For context, the CEP measurement is the radius of a circle within which half of the missile's projectiles are expected to fall, says GulfLink. In other words, the SBU-38's 32.8-foot CEP means that half of all Hammer bombs Ukraine launches using this version of the glide kit are expected to land within a circle that has a radius of 32.8 feet. That's precise, but it's nothing compared to the other versions of the AASM HAMMER. France has also developed the SBU-54 and SBU-64 variants of the AASM HAMMER. The former adds imaging infrared homing to the initial version of the glide bomb kit, which allows the previously dumb bomb to which it's attached to match its target with a reference image stored in the bomb kit's memory. As for the latter, that comes with laser guidance on top of the GPS and inertial navigation system, which allows for even greater precision. In both cases, the CEP is cut down to just 3.28 feet. Given what we saw in the Bryansk strike footage, it's likely that Ukraine used either the SBU-54 or the SBU-64 variants of the AASM HAMMER in its attack. Both bombs touched down within feet of each other, with their strikes focusing on a specific corner of the FSB building. That suggests a low CEP was in play, and it tells Putin that Ukraine has its hands on the best version of a bomb kit that was already devastating enough at the base level. We also know more about the bomb kit and its capabilities in terms of its range and launch platforms. Army recognition says that the bomb was initially designed for use with the Dassault Rafale and Mirage 2000D aerial platforms, though its compatibility has expanded massively since 2007. Now AASM HAMMER bombs can be fired from the Dassault Mirage F1 and, crucially for Ukraine, the F-16 and MiG-29. The latter 2 platforms are both in Ukraine's arsenal, meaning Ukraine has plenty of the jets needed to make its Hammer bombs vital weapons as the Ukraine war draws deeper into its 4th year. As for range, the Hammer kit extends a dumb bomb's range to the point where it can strike a target up to 43.5 miles away. Again, think about what this means in the context of how the kit works. Without a Hammer kit, the dumb bombs Ukraine drops would have to be flown directly over their targets. That means risk. For the July 24th Bryansk strike, Ukraine would have to send its F-16s or MiG-29s into Russian territory, potentially exposing them to aerial defenses that could shoot them down. But with the Hammer kit, it can launch its bombs from behind the border, safe inside Ukrainian-controlled territory, so it doesn't have to worry about losing multi-million-dollar aerial platforms that are already in short supply. Add the ability of the SBU-54 and SBU-64 variants to track and engage mobile targets, with the former also working in all weather conditions, and you get a weapon that is fast proving itself to be the most valuable in Ukraine's arsenal. And it gets worse for Putin. Ukraine knows how valuable the Hammer is, so does France. That's why the 2 countries are cooperating to ensure that as many of these terrifying bomb kits enter Ukraine as possible. Production is ramping up on the AASM HAMMER in France. On July 3rd, France's Ministry of Armed Forces announced that it had signed a deal with the kit's manufacturer, Safran, to pump out more Hammer kits than ever before. France will spend about $150 million on this deal, which United 24 says is aimed at helping Safran to increase its manufacturing capacity to the point where it's able to build 1,200 AASM HAMMER kits annually. Safran was already making plenty. In 2024, it managed to exceed its production target of 600 units by nearly 40%, eventually pumping out 830 of the powerful guidance kits. In 2025, it will hit 1,200, all of which are heading into Ukraine, and it may look to go beyond these numbers in the future. To make it simple, more Hammer kits are going to be arriving in Ukraine. That means none of Russia's border regions or its military facilities and infrastructure within about 40 miles of the front lines are safe. Ukraine has already been making very good use of the Hammer kits it already has. What happened in Bryansk is only the latest in a series of precision strikes made possible by the French bomb kits. Back in April, Ukraine also used Hammer bombs to wipe out small collections of Russian troops in Russian-occupied regions of Ukraine's Zaporizhia Oblast. United 24 says that Ukraine's Hammer bombs targeted the villages of Mirna, Pobydna, and Zerbianki. Pobydna was hit with a pair of Hammer bombs, which destroyed a Russian artillery unit and the field fortification the Massive Gun's crew was using as shelter. Mirna was also hit with a pair of Hammer bombs, which decimated a building where Russia's 22nd Separate Special Purpose Brigade had gathered. And in Zerbianki, Ukraine's bombs destroyed an ammunition storage facility Russia had attempted to conceal in a forested area. Euromaidan Press says there have been plenty of other Hammer attacks. Ukraine has also used the bombs to strike targets in Bakhmut, where it took out a Russian 3rd Army Corps command post. In Kursk, Ukraine has used the Hammer kits to bomb buildings where Russian drone operators were stationed. Ukraine has also used its Hammer bombs to take out troop concentrations in Guyevo that were preparing for an assault on the Sumy Oblast. Ukraine's Hammer bombs hit hard, fast, and accurately, and Russia seems to have no answer to them. What just happened to its FSB building in Bryansk seems to prove that point. This was a valuable Russian facility that was being used by some of the most important assets in Putin's military. It should have been heavily guarded with air defenses, but they seem to do nothing to stop Ukraine from dropping the hammer. Now an FSB facility lies in ruins, leading us to the obvious question: what comes next? The first answer is that the odds are high that more strikes inside Bryansk are coming. The Russian border region has long been a target for Ukraine. Back in 2023, an armed group of soldiers crossed the border into Bryansk in a raid that served as something of a precursor for the far more successful counter-invasion of Kursk that came in August 2024. At the time, Russia claimed that Ukraine's soldiers fired on a car, killing a pair of civilians before being forced back behind the border by FSB agents. This was an interesting attack. Ukraine denied all involvement, claiming that the strike could have been a false flag operation carried out by Russia in an attempt to brand Ukraine's forces as terrorists. Eventually, the Russian Volunteer Corps claimed responsibility for the raid. This is a paramilitary group of Russian fighters who oppose Putin's regime. They don't operate under Ukraine's military guidance and appear to have conducted the 2023 Bryansk raid independently. Still, the 2023 raid showed that Bryansk could become a hotspot in the Ukraine war. In 2025, that has proven to be the case. In May, the Russian news agency TASS reported that the period between May 6th and May 7th saw Ukraine attack Bryansk with 66 strikes, using 140 munitions. That's according to the region's governor, Alexander Bogomaz, who tried to claim that Ukraine's attacks were targeting civilian settlements. The Ukrainian military continues to carry out barbaric attacks on our border area. Over the past 24 hours, despite the ceasefire declared by our country, the Kyiv regime has carried out 66 attacks on settlements in the border areas. Operational and emergency services are working on the ground, TASS reports Bogomaz is saying. The mention of a ceasefire is interesting. Ukraine's strikes coincided with the self-declared ceasefire Putin attempted to force onto Ukraine so Russia could enjoy its Victory Day celebrations. Ukraine never agreed to that ceasefire. Bryansk felt the full force of its aerial arsenal in May. Fast forward to June 29th, and Bryansk was once again a Ukrainian target. This time, United 24 reported that Ukrainian drones struck a military logistics facility that was later identified as being a branch of Russia's 1060th Red Banner Center for Material and Technical Support. The facility was a known storage and repair base for Russia's artillery, with Ukraine's strikes leaving it as little more than rubble on the ground. The point here is that Ukraine's strike on the FSB building is just one of several it has conducted in Bryansk in 2025. That's worrying for Putin. These Ukrainian strikes are becoming increasingly successful, showing Ukraine that it can launch more to create major problems in a key Russian border region. Today it was an FSB building. In June, an artillery storage unit was taken out. Tomorrow, who knows what Ukraine could target next? Putin will be worried about what the future holds for Bryansk. And it's not just the loss of military facilities that will concern Russia's leader. He may also be worried that Ukraine is setting up for a repeat of the Kursk counter-invasion of 2024. We've touched on that invasion already, which saw Ukraine manage to snatch up around 460 square miles of territory in Kursk. It held that territory for months until Russia was able to force the Ukrainian soldiers out by April of this year. Kursk was a gamble for Ukraine. It was betting the farm that Russia wouldn't escalate its attacks despite Ukraine crossing a red line to conduct the first invasion of Russian soil since World War II. Ukraine was right. Putin didn't escalate. Instead, he spent months gathering enough soldiers to push Ukraine out using the same meat-grinder tactics that he's used throughout the war. There's a good reason we're discussing Kursk in the context of Ukraine's most recent strike in Bryansk. Like Kursk, Bryansk is a border region that is looking increasingly vulnerable to Ukrainian assaults. If Ukraine decides to launch a counter-invasion into that region as it did in Kursk, Putin has to deal with a repeat of a problem that he thought he'd solved. Taking even a small portion of Bryansk would give Ukraine and its president Volodymyr Zelensky some much-needed leverage at the negotiating table in any future peace discussions. That's what Kursk did, Rand Corporation pointed out in September 2024, and it's no surprise that Putin spent much of 2025 pushing Ukraine out of Kursk as US President Donald Trump started his push for peace. Now, Trump is piling pressure on Putin. Earlier in June, Trump gave Putin a 50-day deadline to come to the negotiating table under the threat of the US implementing secondary sanctions against Russia. Trump is now losing patience. On July 28th, The Guardian reported that Trump slashed that deadline during a visit to the UK. Sitting alongside UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, Trump told the press, "I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made. Trump's comments came in the wake of the most recent meeting between Russian and Ukrainian representatives for what are supposed to be peace discussions in Turkey. No peace is being negotiated. The meeting, which took place last week, only led to yet another small prisoner exchange between the two nations. Putin has also been dodging calls to attend a direct meeting with Zelensky at a summit by the end of August, with Putin claiming that he would only attend such a meeting if an agreement was ready to be signed. That agreement doesn't seem to be coming anytime soon. And that brings us back to Bryansk. Ukraine didn't just strike any old Russian facility on July 24th. It hit an FSB building, which is home to some of Russia's elite operatives, who are supposed to know what Ukraine is planning. Those operatives received and ignored warnings to evacuate, showcasing a level of arrogance and incompetence that is bad news for Russia. With peace talks faltering, Ukraine may be striking targets like these in preparation for an incursion into Bryansk, akin to the Kursk invasion we saw in August 2024. Ukraine has already proven it can hit targets in Bryansk. If it's able to take territory in the Russian oblast, it may gain key leverage as Trump piles on the pressure for Putin to come to the negotiating table. And it's not just Bryansk that needs to worry about Ukrainian strikes. More deep strikes are hitting Russia right in its heart. Ukraine just fried the nerve center of Russia's war machine with a devastating drone assault that has taken out a manufacturer of Putin's electronic warfare equipment. Find out more in our video, and remember to subscribe to The Military Show for more videos covering the latest developments in Bryansk. And thank you, as always, for watching.